And welcome everybody to Daily Intimacy. Really nice to be here. We're just going to dive right in with a centering. So I invite everybody to have a deep breath and exhale. And let's do that again. Another deep breath in and exhale. And gently close your eyes. Just take a moment to appreciate yourself. A moment to appreciate your body carrying you through this time that we've been going through. All these months now. Your body that breathes in and out with almost no effort or no effort at all, depending on the moment. And find another place in your body, whether it's inside, internally, or in physical musculature or skeletal system, some part of your body to really appreciate right now. And maybe even put your hands there wherever, maybe you're really appreciating your liver for all of the processing and cleansing and detoxing your liver does. So put your hand on your liver. Maybe you're appreciating your legs for carrying you through all the exercise you've been doing and the moving. Maybe your heart. And as you're holding this part of yourself with love and tenderness and connection, take another breath and really turn up the volume, as I like to say, on your appreciation. Like enthusiastic gratitude. Sometimes these days require real conscious effort and action, depending on how you're feeling each morning when you wake up. And while you're still holding that space for yourself, I invite you to bring your attention to the earth and your feet on the ground. And just feel her rich soil, rich nutrients, all that she offers us. And perhaps there's a rhythm that you feel when you touch the earth in your mind's eye, in your energy body. Perhaps there's a pulse that you feel or that you recognize. It feels to me like the pulse of a slow, steady, confident heartbeat that I can tune into and tap into anytime that I'm needing that sense of ground and coming back to a rhythm. So breathing energy up from the earth into your body. Releasing your hands from the part that you were honoring, but not letting go of the gratitude, of course, because that's there. And have a breath and gently open your eyes when you're ready. Great. And I always encourage people to have their videos on. And if you can, even if you're not in a great space in your home, or maybe you're driving, maybe you're still in your pajamas. All pajamas welcome to the daily intimacy. I always say that, or I often say that. You don't have to look your best. You got Linda zooming in from Detroit, thinking I can't possibly get through all of my to-dos. Thank you. Thank you. Actually, I'm really glad you're here. I mean, you're here every week, but I'm glad you're especially here today, because I have a feeling that might be addressed in some way today. So I'm going to introduce you to Lena Dolter. She is a wonderful, bright light of a human. Lena and I met, I think we met through a one of those summits that where people invite other people to come and be a speaker and be interviewed. And Lena, I think you interviewed me maybe twice, and maybe I interviewed you once. I don't remember. I haven't done a summit in a while, but we just had a great connection, good energy, and just felt like a really good vibe between us. And now it turns out that she knows my favorite yoga teacher that I've been taking classes with out in St. Louis via Zoom. So that's really, really special. And Lena has been, as far as, I mean, that was like a couple years ago when we did the first summit. I think you were kind of just beginning.
At least it was probably 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
It was just beginning. Yeah.
So I've just really watched you like stand ground in yourself as a coach and as a supporter of what comes to me is right action, which is interesting. For others. And I know recently you've been really tuned in to rhythm and flow, and my words are honoring our rhythm and our flow. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation, because that topic is really important. So anything you want to add about yourself? Obviously, I'm not reading a bio. I never do.
No problem.
So anything you want to know about you? I just like to tune into like my connection with the person who's the extraordinary presenter who's coming, and what I know about you. So yeah. So just a reminder, you guys can have speaker view or Hollywood Squares view. Just at the top of your screen on the right, top of the right. That's where it is on my screen. And Lena, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. Take a quick step.
Yeah, Lena's in from St. Louis, so she's at 8:15.
8:15, which is fine. I'm up. It's just like to get moving. And I was telling Robyn before everybody came on that we are having some rain, so it's very dark outside this light that's shining on me today. But I was really happy to be here. And also, in full transparency, I get a little nervous, like having all these people I don't know like watching me. I'm like, but
yeah, I get it. They're really nice. They're really nice.
I believe you. Send you
good energy. Yeah, we're all really nice here, which is nice. Under work pressure. And okay.
Yeah.
So,
but when I met Robyn, I was love coaching women specifically. And I had done a couple of interview series with that, and it was because I had a love coach. I think we all work with someone or find something, right, at some point in our life that puts us on a path, and we explore it. There's wines and, all that good stuff. And so that's when I first met Robyn. And as a human, as a woman and a person of my own volition, I really connected to her work because I found it so grounding. And that's always been an element of where I am. Like, I also teach yoga. I've been teaching yoga. I've been practicing yoga for over 20 years. When I found it, it was instantly gave me this feeling that I'm full disclosure, I'm also a weepy today. The work that I do with women now, so I work solely with women, but that doesn't mean I can't help men or that we can't speak to how men come into this facet. I work with women in rhythm and cycles, as Robyn said. I'm very in tune to the natural rhythm of the woman. And for me, that's the menstrual. For me and for women, I believe, it's the menstrual cycle. And even if you're not menstruating, you are rhythmic. And men, you are too. I just happen not to be an expert in your rhythm. But I know enough to, like, we can talk about that. But women who menstruate, we have 4 distinct phases that we're in, that we experience every single month. And women who don't menstruate, you still have the same rhythm. It's just a little different because you're in a different phase completely than those who are menstruating. So I am in the season or phase of my cycle where my energy is more internal. So for me to be out here expressing myself feels a little extra vulnerable than it would in a different phase. And also just, things in the world, right? Like I often say to people and like to women, how do I want to say this? Your cycle impacts how you experience the world and what's happening, as does the world influence your cycle. Does that make sense to anybody? Robyn, do you want to add?
Yeah, that makes sense. I like to separate those out. So
Sure.
you're where you are in your cycle influences how you take in and experience the world.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, that would be so great to be really conscious of, no matter where you are, like in whatever body you're in and in whatever phase of life you're in. That would be so helpful to have like that really, really conscious. Because sometimes I don't know, like, wow, why am I reacting or responding to the world in this way on this day? And then the next day or the next week, it's different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yes, to what you said.
Yeah. And just to give a little side on that, that's like in the work that I've been doing for this long, like I started by tracking my cycle. And so for those of you here who, like regardless of who you are and what body you live in and how you identify with who you are, we are human beings in a cyclic world, right? Think of it this way. The earth has seasons. No matter where you live on the planet, you have seasons. I live in the Midwest, Robyn's up in the East Coast, lots of East Coasters, right? And we have 4 seasons. So if you live in the West, you might have different experiences of those 4 seasons, but there's 4 seasons nonetheless. And they have an intention, right? So winter goes dry, and dormant, not necessarily dry, but dormant, where like nothing's really growing. It's the time of the year where the earth is kind of resting, right? And in your body, you have the same phase or season. For women, that's going to be when you menstruate. For non-menstruators, it could be either the new or full moon. And that's just something that we can get into later, just something to feel into because it's going to be individual. And so each season then feeds the other. And that's very like your body. And for men too, right? Men's cycles are more daily. They're like, you get up, you have your experience of the day, you go to bed, like you're on your phases are daily. They're pretty much the same, where women's are not. And I'm so passionate about this work because for many reasons, but one is, as women, no matter where you are in your life cycle, we live in a society that is hopefully slowly changing, that does ask us to show up in the energy of a masculine cycle. and that is that daily energy is the same. You put out what you like, you go, go, go. There's like all this output. And if you work hard, you get what you know, work hard, play hard. Like that's something I've heard many of previous managers say in my life. And I think earlier it was, I'm looking for your face. I can't see your face, but I remember somebody was saying to-do lists. Where did she go?
Oh yeah, Linda.
Linda, I thought so. Okay. And so that's why, like, we'll get more into that. But anyway, I'm really passionate about it because what I've seen, and I saw it in my own self, which is why I tuned into myself, tuned into my cycle, because I was trying to do all the things all the time, and my energy just didn't wanna. Right? And then I felt bad about myself. Like I would like, oh, I can't get all this done. Why? You know, similar to what Robyn was saying, like, why am I reacting this way now? But, you know, yesterday it wasn't. And so in that, I tuned to the phases to support myself. And this is how I support women, to energetically align, so that you, like, your to-do list, Linda, becomes less of something that you're like every day, and more of something that you like broadly look at, and we weave in what you're working on in the phases of the cycle that allow you to ebb and flow with your own energy and still get your stuff done, but from a place where you're working with yourself and not against yourself. And this works for, like, this is everyone. It just will express differently depending on where you are in your life cycle and who you are.
Ooh, so not swimming upstream is one thing I'm hearing.
Yeah, not swimming upstream.
I was trying to do that yesterday. I was like, what am I doing? Oh my goodness. I want to ask you one thing before you continue. I had also heard about men's cycles versus women's, and I don't have any research in my back pocket right now, but I read something about hormones,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and how men are in this sort of 24-hour cycle,
Mm-hmm.
and hormones are changing in some kind of flow, but it's it's 24 hours. I guess you said that.
Mm-hmm.
And for women, it's changing over, you know, 24 days or 28 days,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So I think that's really interesting.
It is so interesting. And what's interesting about women versus men, like, so men have this, we both have consistent cycles. They just run on different
Schedules.
Yeah, schedules.
Planes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and for women, it's like anywhere from 28 to 31. Like that would be normal, right? But I advise always that what anyone teaches, myself, anyone who teaches about cycles, the reason I do this work is for you to understand your own cycle, because I can guide you to understand the phases, and I can give you the tools that you need to really understand your own rhythm, which I call syncing your cycle, because tracking your cycle doesn't give you anything. If you're using an app, or you're like, you know, aligning with the moon, to understand like when you might have your period, I say bleeding, but I know some people are not comfortable with that. Or maybe ovulation. Those are like the two things you might know if you track your cycle. So you're really not doing yourself any service. And for men who are involved with, like, wherever you are in your relationship with women, I actually just wrote an email about this the other day. I was going to share it on Facebook, and I'm going to share it on Instagram soon. I read this post on Instagram, and it's from Priestessing I think her name is Priestessing the Patriarch. So if you're interested, you can look at her. And the reason this post caught my attention, it was a very, how do I want to say? Artistic, and like I'll just tell you what it is. It was a picture of a woman with a blood cross on her forehead, like squatting on her deck with a little pool of blood underneath her pelvis, and a man, it's a cartoon, like a caricature, a little off the center. She's like meditating, she's in it. And a blonde man in this over in the corner, kind of like, what is happening, right? Like, how do I connect with this person? And from her perspective, she was saying, like, often men come to her and ask her how to support their woman, like their partner, in that phase of their cycle. And and it was lovely, right? Because it was like, oh, there's all these ways, and I can certainly go into that. And for me, like, because of who I work with and what I know about women that I like, overwhelmed, overcommitted women and women who are disconnected from their cycle, I saw this really huge opportunity to say, like, how can you as a woman connect with your cycle? Because when that happens, you have the openness to invite your partner in to connecting with you where you are. You know what you need. So your partner, you can ask for it. So that it, like, to me, that creates this deep intimacy, right? Like cycle work, where, like, again, whether you're syncing with your cycle or you're coordinating with the moon, is this divine, like, connection that when you get connected to your body in this, through this way, this is how I teach, but in whatever way, and you know what you need, then you meet your partner and you get to communicate, and they come in and it's like this weaving, right? So that's how I feel like they connect together. So that, I don't know many men, and maybe there are some here, who are really in tune to their partner's changes. I know that some men are in tune to it because they experience this extraordinary shift in mood and energy, and some men can get really scared and like they want to back away, which is like that separation. And y'all are out but coming together. So how can you imagine, like, how amazing it would be, like, if you knew when you were approaching that time and you began to address that shift in your own self differently, how that could impact your relationship, whether you're in a partnership now or not.
Yeah, good point. Good point. I put a question in the chat box just about something upstream or overwhelm or overcommitment. Christina just responded. But I think it's an interesting frame, and I'd love to take it deeper in terms of self-awareness, because I think that's a really, really valuable point. Again, no matter what body we're in, whether we're bleeding, not bleeding, whatever. Because if we really were living that way, close to the land, aware of the moons and the cycle, then we would literally choose energy output or energy or feeding ourselves, or energy output or input, out breath or in breath, in a very appropriate way that would really be honoring ourselves and all of the nuances that make, and the subtleties and the complexity of our being would really be just vibrating in the right way, in the right flow. So that disconnect that we have because we live in this culture, is pretty profound. And I of course impacts our health, our well-being, and especially now in the, this time, our health and our well-being are, on the forefront of everyone's minds. So it feels like another piece of that, like a really deep, profound piece of that.
Yeah.
So just looking at the comments, Christina says, overwhelmed in some areas when it comes to chores, but most areas underwhelmed, almost like I have lost my passion. Thank you for communicating that. I'd be curious to hear more. And if you want to share more, just put me in the chat if you want to share. You can unmute. Andrew, I like weaving of men and women, men as warp, women as weft. Makes sense. Warp is more frequent strands daily. Warp is a more frequent strand daily. Cool. No, I hadn't thought about it in that way either. Yeah. So go ahead, continue, Lena. I just wanted to say, I mean, I actually am one who went into menopause really early in my life, like in my early 40s. And so I haven't had that kind of awareness of a cycle like that, of the intense sort of hormonal cycle. I'm 54 now, but it's been 14 years. And but I know that, obviously I know that I'm cycling.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting to, yeah, to have, I mean, I just love to hear what else you have to say about having more awareness around that and sort of how.
Yeah. Let me tune in for a hot second.
Yeah, go
Like
ahead.
there's a million, like a few things I want to say, but I want to not overwhelm. That's the fine line of being a woman who works with overwhelmed women. It's like
Yeah.
really bringing it in. Um, so what's forefront for me is Christina, when she talked about overwhelmed, like with chores, and underwhelmed and like lack of passion in other areas. And like practically, I'm inspired to share that there's a phase of your cycle where like you are actually charged to do those things like chores. So it could be that you're in a phase of your cycle where like it could be, depending on how I work with my women, is like pay attention to how you feel, right? So like Robyn was saying earlier, like if we were really if we were really living on the earth as, our ancestors came, right, to be here on the earth and lived in that way from the earth to the earth, we would be living different human experiences. And there are ways to recharge ourselves so that we can reconnect to the earth. And to me, your cycle is one of them. Yoga is another. Like anytime you're tuning in, like breath work, I know Robyn, uses, excuse me, breath work. Your body is earth. Like that's what we're made of, right? We're made of earth, sky, water is our blood, all that good stuff, right? Fire is our spirit. So practically, when you attune to the rhythm of your cycle, you can use it to serve you. So that you're like planning, which might not be sexy, but it's like gives you freedom, right? You can use it, you can plan it. So like, oh, I know I have to do this stuff, right? So for example, chores are like a doing activity, right? So they're going to come into the phase of the cycle where internal stuff is happening, right? Where like you want, like, it's natural. The only way to know that is through syncing, right? So paying attention to when you feel that, really coming back to what we said at the beginning, like what's going on in my external world and that may be impacting how I feel about this right now, whether it's chores or something else. And then how do I feel in my body, right? Like I often tell my client, like, how do I feel energetically? How do I feel physically? And how do I feel mentally or emotionally? So those three questions to like really, like, I call them the daily check-in. And physically, it's like, am I hungry? Think basic, right? Like, am I hungry? Right? Like, did I move my body today? Really basic questions to get just in touch with yourself. How do I feel emotionally? Am I weepy? Am I excited? Is it hard for me to focus? Like, just these are examples, right? But just like to get you to really scope out, and anyone can do this. This is for anyone. Because these questions, these daily check-ins are just that, to check in with you so that you know where you are, and then make any notes on what happened in the external world. Again, nothing intense. You're not looking to write a book here, but something that you will be able to understand so that when you visit this again, you are aware of what has happened, like what impacted that day, that time, and you get to make what I call life edits as you move forward, right? So like the way that I work with women is that we get in touch with what's happening. Like we lay it all out there, and then we implement what we find out through the synchronization of these daily check-ins and where you are in your cycle. And then that begins, like for women like Linda, or even men, right, who feel overwhelmed with the to-do list, that begins the journey of the to-do list being the thing you're focused on, and really like where you can put your energy. So it's not a time management issue, it's an energy issue. And that's how I bring, you into yourself so that you can work with your energy. So like Robyn would say, swimming upstream. To me, I say like working against yourself, right? Like why? And it's just because we've been doing that for so long. So that's the habit, that's the cycle that we've built as a society. And it's it's my job to help you, break that cycle so that you can live in one that's yours, right? Like you're in charge of your bod. No, no one else is, as much as they might want to believe they are. And when you know yourself, capital S, then you have, like you have this, your confidence increases, right? Like your ability to adapt increases. You're not as tired, right? Like all of these things, like if you just think into like what's going on with you right now, like how you can see yourself in this, and how you can maybe add these daily check-ins into your thing. And yeah, so go ahead, Robyn, with anything.
Yeah, no, I was, how did you know I wanted to say something? I was just thinking that, it was a curiosity that if I tracked what you suggested, if I tracked it myself just by recording, right, with the daily check-in, and I looked at the moon cycle, I wonder if over time it would take a month or two or three,
Mhm.
I guess, to see if anything lined up. Probably there's research out there. I don't have to do it necessarily for myself, but I guess to know my own my own tendencies, my own rhythms, my own inclinations, excuse me, would be interesting. And Andrew wants to speak, and I look forward to that in 1 second. Just go ahead and unmute. But and I'm thinking that as the moon's coming back to fullness, right? It's like that's outward, 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 and then we have inward, 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 and then we have outward, outward, outward. So if I lined up my work, my writing project, or I'm creating a new program right now, like I don't know what phase the moon is in today, but like it would be interesting to line that up and see if it makes a difference in terms of my energy. Versus yesterday, I felt like I was swimming upstream, and I was like, why am I working on this now? Clearly not. It's clearly not supposed to be happening. Okay, Andrew, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I'm finding this really interesting. But I'm having a little bit of resistance thinking that there's like one rhythm. And I'm wondering whether men and women have different primary rhythms, and also whether it's more than trying to fit to that one rhythm, it's more trying to find a harmonization between various rhythms that are playing. And I also think back to like Ayurveda and the different rhythms that Ayurveda brings up, and whether it's seasonal or daily or hourly or that sort of thing. I'm just wondering if, yeah, along those lines.
Yeah. Is Lena frozen? No.
No, I'm here. I'm listening, processing. I'm like, So what I hear you saying is that there is like, I don't know if I'll say it correctly, so you can correct me. What I hear you saying is that there's some resistance to feeling. Can you say more about the resistance to thinking there's only one rhythm?
Just that men are a daily rhythm and that women are a seasonal rhythm. That maybe we both have daily and seasonal rhythms, but the woman's primary rhythm, the one that's strongest, is seasonal, and the one that's strongest for the man is daily.
Yeah.
And that those two rhythms can be harmonized. So it's not so much, when you were talking about the weaving, and that's when I was making the comment about the warp and the weft and that sort of thing. It's more like creating a pretty picture of all that, or a sound that takes those two different frequencies. And of course, there might be other frequencies as well that are playing.
Yeah, totally. So yes, because like as I'm with you, I'm feeling you, because we interweave with each other, right? Like whether we're in a house together or on the planet together. And I feel like that goes back to how we are processing or taking in what's happening around us and who we're with, right? So like all of these external things impact how we react or relate, right. Just like how our internal compass, right? Yeah, totally is kind of like, to me, I look at it as the guidance. So it's like, I'm seeing and hearing what you're saying, like women have the primary compass of being lunarly, because that's how we are lunarly attuned. Women are more lunarly attuned, and men are more
Nice.
solarly attuned. Yeah.
Oh,
So,
nice, nice.
yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Does that resonate for you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so, and in that, but that doesn't mean you don't experience lunar rhythms, and it doesn't mean women don't experience solar rhythms, because within the lunar rhythm, there's solar energy, right? Like Robyn was saying, the moon itself, so we're in waxing gibbous today, I looked it up. And so waxing gibbous, we're moving toward fullness, right? Yeah. 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 Sometimes I get it confused. I have to like get in my head and be like, "Ugh." So, and in that, yeah, the energy of the lunar cycle in that way is full. And if you're a woman in a different phase of your cycle, you might not feel that way. So I also talk about that with my women, right? It's like, just another layer. It's a very layered experience. And I feel like you here are into that, like you have this concept and this awareness of the layers. And so maybe this is like just one more layer that you add into your experience as being a human here, and then put it into what works for you in this moment. Does that make sense?
And it's not just that they're layered, it's that, like, going back to physics, taking more of the masculine side, but when you have different frequencies, if the peaks align, then you get these additive peaks, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of that harmonization, it's how can you align the peaks and the troughs of those frequencies. So maybe that's when something, I don't know, my mind is overworking right now, but maybe that's why some things work together between a man and a woman at sometimes better than others.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my mind going a little bit too far.
No, I get it. I get it. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Awesome. You're welcome.
We have a question from Linda, a very good question. How does one find their cycle when in menopause?
Yeah, love that question. Thanks, Linda. So are you in full on menopause, or are you like peri?
She might respond.
Yeah.
I'm in full, so we can use me as an example, or Linda
Full.
can.
Oh, there she is.
She
Full?
says
Full menopause, yeah.
Full. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, full. So here's how I would use what Robyn said, right? Like lunarly. And it's going to start with how you feel. So everything that I say to, you're going to pick one. You can pick the full moon or the new moon and begin on that day to tune in. It's a daily practice. The new is going to be that inward energy, right? Like typically, it's just gonna depend on how you feel. So like Robyn said, it's gonna take at least 3 months for you to develop that rhythm. What I know for sure in the experience that I work with women is that they typically will not commit to that process, which is why they end up out of flow. And so that's what my Know Your Flow program helps them with. It's like get them in tune with it so that they are armed to like be in flow. And then your rhythm will be determined by the phases of the moon. Well, not determined. You will notice how you ebb and flow with the moon. So new, dark, internal, full, expressive, external. Does that answer your question?
I don't know why, just a second. I don't know why, but it kind of froze at a couple times. So okay. For me, but you're saying first that you just take where the moon is and notice how I'm feeling, like, for example, on the full moon. And then each day after that, but you said something about either the new or the full, there was something.
Yeah, like their energetic quality.
Yes.
Yeah. So the energetic quality of the new moon is more of an internal, like and a setting intentions of space. So it's going to be like, it's the planting of the seeds. The full moon, and then like, so the new is like the earth experiences newness, right? And then we lead up to the full moon. The full moon is the full expression of the moon, where it's reflecting the light of the sun. And that is your external, like, expressive time, potentially, right? I definitely want to say this, caution to anyone that hears me say that about the moon. These are just the energetic qualities of the moon. Just like the phases have their own energetic qualities, your physical body, doesn't always mean that you will match up with the qualities of that phase, which is why I do the work I do, so that you can really, this is an internal journey. Like that's your baseline. And then through that, you find your rhythm. Does that make sense?
So it's
But I guess-
basic. The number one thing is to really focus each day where you are and notice what it is in with the moon.
Yes.
And then you go back and kind of track what is happening.
Yeah. And then yes, exactly. And then if you want to go further, you seek me out.
Okay. Yeah. No, I find this, I feel like, oh my God, I should have known this. I mean, I've known the importance of being on, kind of try to live in accordance with that, but I never have. So I've never put the energy.
Yeah.
And I'm just I'm thinking I'm doing an internal job on myself, if you will, when I could be needlessly beating myself up when I could be totally in this phase where, because lately I'm like, I don't really, but I feel it a lot. Like I don't want to connect with anybody. And I'm usually more of an extrovert. And it's been a while now. And I'm like, wow, what's this about? And I'm just wondering right now if it's because I haven't been honoring that, that now I'm almost going the other way. I'm just like, I'm going to hunker in. But then I think that I feel like, well, I don't have any energy. I don't want to do anything kind of every day. So not energy physically, because I have the physical energy. It's more the desire. So
Yeah. Thank you. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing all that. And what I'm hearing is that you have an awareness that you are potentially out of sync with your energy. However that relates to the moon, you're noticing that you have some things that could be helped by diving a little deeper into where you are in your life, in your body, in your own cycle. Yeah.
One other thing, do you notice that this helps people's health, mental and physical?
Great question. For me personally, it has absolutely helped my physical health. And by that, I just mean, how do I want to say this? How do I want to give you this? So as a woman who lived in a mental space, so I have, like Andrew and maybe some of others you hear, I have a very active mind. For those of you who know astrology, I have Mercury's in my Gemini, so it's that's Mercury's communication. Gemini is super active, so my mind is just like blown a lot, and I have a lot of thoughts. And I'm also, raised in a society that, like I said earlier, asks us to do all these things. And so internal shame, internal judgment has been part of me for many years. So when I tuned into my cycle, and then not only tuned in, but synced it, like that's the difference I want y'all to hear, is like there's a track and then there's a synchronization. And the synchronization is where my work is separate from anyone who's like telling you to track, okay? And that changed my life experience in myself. Physically, I wasn't physically, like, for instance, like mentally I'm less hard on myself. So the inner critic is still there. She shows up at certain times. It's part of her job. She's there for a reason. So like for the women in luteal phase, for the women, in the season where like you might be, depending on where you are, like she shows up because she's there to tell us something. She's there to tell us either, there's something to get rid of here, something to release, something to shed, or there's a way I can use this critic to like put energy into some work. By work, I mean like those writing tasks, like Robyn was saying earlier, like planning, the editor, I call her. And that's all stuff that I go into greater detail in. It's not like, anyway. But to answer your question, long ways. Yes. Because the tuning into yourself, also you're going to notice like I mean, there's certain things that you might be turning to, certain habits that you're living that actually increase the experience that you're having in a negative way, right? Like in impact, like, you know, increasing that critic, increasing like physical energy loss, for lack of a better word right now, like physical tiredness, right? Like, so that it's all this fine tuning. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it broke up again, so I don't know. I just, but that's very, very last sentence. It was like, okay, but I can see mostly that you would be doing something perhaps detrimental unknowingly that could really affect your health. So that's where knowing this, you like, oh my God, that's the one thing I really shouldn't be doing. And then it's not like 100 things.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It will, yeah. Yes. Yes. You got it. You're so welcome. You're so welcome.
Yeah, I imagine for me, and I know when I tuned in to myself, a good one here from Laura, you know, I feel better in my body. I have more energy. I'm better, you know. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now. You broke up a little bit too, but
oh yeah. I was saying, like, when I'm in tune with my rhythm, I feel better. I have more energy. I'm able to feel more effective when I'm in that phase of coming into the full moon, I would say. And also awareness of really resting and going internal and inside when that's what's natural for me, you know, at that phase. I'm going to just tune it right to the moons for myself. You know, we're coming to the full moon. I'm in a writing phase right now, and that makes sense. Even though yesterday it was harder at that time of day, I feel we're in out breath because we're coming towards the full moon. And then in about 7 days, or Laura said July 5th, you know, I'm going to be aware of what happens when the full moon starts to, you know, close and come into a place of darkness. Maybe that's a time to be more meditative and to make sure I'm staying tuned in internally before I take action externally. You know, that's the really most important piece for me, not to take action externally without really checking in. And that phase of the moon cycle feels like that would make sense.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. Love to hear from Laura.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you, Lena, because you gave me such a gift when we first came on, and you said you're in your weepy phase. And I was like really tuned into my weepy time when I was menstruating, and there was like this sacred time, and I learned to love it and kind of be in that space. And menopausal now, it's been harder for me to honor it. And I, you know, as a result of your sharing and, you know, this whole perspective of tuning into the cycles, I feel like, yes, I'm back into my weepy time. Yeah. Can like really kind of relish, and also feels like it's going to help me with those I'm in relationship with in my life, you know, kind of sharing more with them, and that this is a beautiful time for me when I'm kind of my weepy, sensitive kind of internal time. So I just also sort of very appreciative of that, and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I'm glad that it supported you in some way. Thank you so much. Yeah, if I can just add, like, that's one, if I could pinpoint one thing, and there's been many things, but the permission to feel has been one of the greatest gifts that has come through in synchronization of my cycle. So living in this synchronicity. I don't always get it right, you know, like, and there are some things that happen in the world or in my life where I have to show up in a phase that may not support it. Like about a month ago, I did a live training inside my Facebook group, and I was totally like into getting like where I am now. Like, so I haven't done a really good job planning my external activities in some cases, but and because I know the rhythm, I can go out of phase and come in with ease because I have that tool. Like, not only do I have the awareness, I also have that the self-care, which is such an overused term, and I don't have a better one right now, but just like, I know what I need, right? Which, I mean, we talked about that at the top of the conversation. I know what I need so that when I go out of the phase, you know, if I, you know, put myself out here, yeah, self-love, like I can come back in and come back into that phase with way more ease than I ever did before I was synced. You know, so it's like, because I'm in the flow. So my body and my emotions and my energy are really like, you know, I love Andrew's before, like that warping, and I might not be saying the right words, right? But like that weaving in and out. And that's really what this is about. It's about tuning in so that you can life edit, tuning in so that you can come back to your capital S self, and honoring where you are. That's like ultimately what this work and why I do it.
Yes. Yes. Well said there at the end, Lena. I mean, well said the whole time, but yes, exactly.
Well,
Because it really is. It's about honoring yourself. Like, bottom line, that's what this work is about. And not just tracking. I hear that. Like, that's a whole thing about getting pregnant or not getting
It
pregnant.
is, yeah, or knowing when your period's
So,
coming, and then like,
we
well,
can let go of that. Yeah. We're all in a different phase now, I think. Not everyone, but you know, like
Yeah.
now it's really about syncing up and staying attuned to ourselves and our natural rhythms, and not fighting against that, and really honoring that which is, you know, wherever we are, instead of trying to bulldoze past, which is basically what our culture teaches us to do.
yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Really beautiful.
Yeah,
Thank you for being
beautiful
here.
topic.
Thanks for sharing everything you shared, your time for sure, your space, your energy, yourselves, and your feedback and your witnessing. Really, it was beautiful. I really thank you, Robyn, for inviting me to be here. And it's been a pleasure. I sure hope you had something that clicked for you today that you can take in and incorporate into your life.
Yeah, it might be nice to put any takeaways in the chat just as we're closing here. I'd love to hear a takeaway or 3 in the chat. And yeah, I just want to remind everybody, I'll send the recording out later on today with Lena's contact information. And also want to let you know, next week we have my friend Julia Rose, straight from Puerto Rico. She's an international Tantra teacher and somebody I met in Sweden last summer, and also ran into again then in California at these Tantra festivals I've been attending and teaching at. And so she'll be with us next week. Sure to be energizing. Absolutely. She's really a beautiful, very enthusiastic, and just lovely woman. Lovely young woman teaching. Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to being with her, and some of you know her, so that's fun. And yeah, just want to take a peek at the takeaways. New perspective, love the idea of tuning in, the interconnection of lunar and solar. Do you suggest tuning into how you feel in the morning? Morning, yeah?
Yeah, I saw that question. Definitely tune in the morning, and the daily check-ins, night.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like recap. You know, like, I don't know, when I like tune in, for me, when I get up in the morning, like especially lately, and if it's gray outside, it can be harder to get up. So I tune in like, oh, what is my mind saying today? Am I in a negative space? So that's a little bit separate than cycle, but it's something that's supportive, right? To get into with your day. And then the daily check-ins, end of day. It's like, wrap it up, right? Because like you're going to have these experiences throughout the day. You may start in one space and you may end up in another. So wrap up your day with that daily check-in. That's going to really, you know, support you.
Great. Good. I'm glad that question. I'm glad Linda asked that. So thank you for clarifying. Yeah. Well, thank you everybody for being here, and I hope you have a really wonderful day. Thank you, Lena, again. I think I'll unmute so everybody can just say goodbye if they would like. There we go.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Nice to hear voices.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Lena, again. Really lovely to see you. You're actually muted, but here we go. Unmuted.
Thank you. Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome.
It's great to see everybody. Thank
Happy
you.
morning.
Yes. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Have a great day,
Bye.
everybody. See you
Have
next
a
week.
good week, folks.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. You too.
Love it. Thanks, Robyn.
You're welcome, Lena. Have a great day.
You too. Take care.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Okay. Oh, no. So,